What do you think? Shall we start?
Yes, Sapavi, I think we can start.
Yeah. Let me maybe give a very brief introduction, not to the session, but to Lakshmi. Well, as some of you might have heard, if wonder kids exist, then Lakshmi is one of them. Very talented, very bright, shiny. Uh, is She's very sharp in her thoughts, and she loves what she does. She is relatively of the same age as most of you, maybe little older, little younger, but that doesn't matter. Uh, and the importance of today's meeting for me personally is that you guys are building the bridges. It is extremely important to make friends because only with friendship we can grow, especially in IR, in international relations, area studies, what we are part of. So please be friends. We have Fatma. She's from Turkey. She came to Kazakhstan to study the culture, to study the language. And let me tell you that she's here for little more than 1 year, and she's much more fluent in Kazakh language than many Kazakhs. And let me tell you, this requires lots of focusing. Most of you, like each and every of you, are talented. Batarjan, who is bringing such things that you can never associate with IR, like Halu culture in IR, and he's doing this scientific research. There are girls who are doing gender research. And they're very young. They're 17 years old and they're already preparing questionnaire. They're questioning big professors, expert scholars. They're trying to find their way. Amina, who had several proposals to be published by famous publication houses, because when she was in her second year, she did a research on kids who had to be moved from their places due to the wars or other armed conflicts. Um, Mirwert, she is doing research on digital diplomacy. Uh, I cannot mention each and every of you, but I'm very happy that somehow I am associated with the great steps you are making in your life. In couple of days or couple of weeks, Lakshmi will become a doctor, and it is what IR, yeah, Lakshmi, or area
Yes,
studies, IR,
internet studies.
yeah. So you guys will have a person who will be able both to be your friend and to help you, to mentor you. And I enjoyed my stay in Bangalore because Lakshmi was there. She took me everywhere and she taught me so many things. I consider Lakshmi my personal guru in, let me call it, like Vedic studies, Indian cultural studies. And you still have to teach me Shivaism. I will ask you. So, without further introduction, let me give the floor to Amina, and she will do her job. And I'm with you, but I'm not with you at the same time.
Okay, thank you very much. So it's my honor to welcome very bright and brilliant researcher and scientist Lakshmi from India. We're privileged to have you today with us and to listen to your, I'm sure, your brilliant lecture. So our first year students are very interested in India, and there's a part of their of their scholar way as a scholars. So please, let's start your lecture, and I hope we'll have a very interesting discussion after your lecture. So
Yeah, thank you, Amina. Thank you, Abba. Amina, could you just confirm if you can see my slide?
yes, and yes, we can see. Please, can you move further so
Okay,
we
you
can
want me to
just
come a little closer?
several slides for us to make sure that everything
Mhm.
works. Yes, yes, everything is good.
Okay. Okay, at the outset, good evening to all of the scholars and Professor Gupta. Thank you so much for inviting me for this very important session on India and especially the Indian history that's ancient, medieval, and modern. And thank you to both Amina and Professor Gupta for your very, very kind introduction. So, just before I start, I would just want to, to give you a few disclaimers in how I would, outline my entire presentation. So, what I've done is I've divided my presentation into certain important dynasties or important empires that have ruled over India. So, India has been divided into three periods, okay, which is ancient, medieval, and modern. So, ancient is before, before Christ. It was during the period where you could see a lot of civilizations happening in India, a lot of birth of religions happening in India, and then you come to medieval period where you can see a lot of empires, a lot of empires both in North India, empires in South India growing and establishing their prevalence. And of course, then we come to the modern period, which talks more about colonization, then in India's independence, and then India's growth trajectory that what we see right now. So the I understand that you first need to understand that India is a huge landmass. It is having almost around 4,000 kilometers from north to south, and many of these empires not only rule in India; it ruled over Indian subcontinent. Now, what is Indian subcontinent? Indian subcontinent includes India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Nepal, parts of Myanmar, and parts of Afghanistan. So it was a huge landmass on which you could see these empires ruling. Now, one thing that you also need to understand is that India as a country has a huge, rich, and a very cultural heritage. It would be impossible for me to, complete almost around 8 to 9,000 years of history in just 2 hours. So what I've done is I've picked up few very, very, very important dynasties, and I will connect you with the links between it. Okay, that way it will be much more easier. Okay, now what let me just tell you a little bit about the place where I come from. I come from South India. Okay, there's a place called Karnataka. It's located among the five South Indian states, and in Karnataka I live in the capital city of Karnataka, which is called Bangalore, or often called as Bengaluru, which means the city of spilled beans. Now, as in Kannadiga, and as well as a Maharashtrian, because I speak Marathi at home, we have many dynasties in our own state. Like we have the Vijayanagara Empire, we have the Vodiyars, we have the Hoysalas. So I will talk about the most important dynasty in my area. Subsequently, the most important dynasties across India. Okay. Now, if you feel that you would want me to stop somewhere or repeat something, please do feel free. Please do stop me at any single point of time. I'll be more than happy to help you out. Okay, so without any further ado, let's look into this particular timeline. Okay, you can see this timeline is from ancient period to medieval to modern. So you can see a transcending phase. You can see during the early 30,000 to 7,000 BC, we had something called as the Bimbekas shelters. What are these shelters? They're basically where the nomads used to live, where the early man used to live. Then we move on to the mega culture. Mega culture is basically where we first started writing. We had a parchment paper, a leaf. We started writing. We were living in caves. We were writing on the cave walls. That is how we started slowly developing as a country, as its own inhabitants. Then we move on to the Harappan phase. Then we move on to the Vedic phase. Then we move on to the birth of religions. Like for example, India is a landmass of Hinduism. Like how you Central Asians follow a lot of Muslim culture, We follow a lot of Hindu culture. Along with it, we also have different variants of religion. Like we are also a birthplace for Jainism, which includes Mahavira. We are also a birthplace of Buddhism, which includes Buddha. We are also a birthplace of Deobandi Islam, which is a variant of Islam. We are a birthplace of the after effects of Christianity, like the Protestant movements of Christianity. So we have a lot of birthplace of several religions. Then we delve into the medieval period where you can see a lot of dynasties ruling, right? We can see even this is where, in medieval period, India and Central Asia started becoming closer. That was the only time when I can say that, India and Central Asia had a peak of historical relations, which I'll also be talking about. And then we move on to the modern period. Just the way how you were under the Soviets, the way how you were being brutally treated under the Russians, the same way we were being brutally treated under certain colonizers. The main colonizer that we had was the British. But once I come to the British colonization period, I'll talk to you about, how Indians face that phase and how we came out of it. And now, what do we see as modern India? So, just with this broad understanding or this broad categorization of ancient, medieval, and modern, let's now understand that what actually happened in India and what actually happened in the world as well. You can see during the ancient history, it's the beginning of the Iron Age. It's the beginning of the Indus Valley civilization. Just like how the world had different civilizations, right? Like Egyptian civilization was there. There was Mesopotamian civilization. There's Harappan civilization. There's Harappan is also the Indus Valley civilization. There is a lot of civilizations that are taking place in the ancient and in the Asian as well as in the African history itself. But the most important civilization for us is the Indus Valley civilization. Along with this, we also had certain empires ruling. We had the Gupta Empire ruling. We had the Mauryan Empire ruling. We had certain very, very critical empires which led to the foundation of what we call as Akhand Bharat, what we call today as modern India. What you can see our Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Our current Prime Minister Narendra Modi is been ruling in India from almost 10 years, from 2014. He calls India's Akhand Bharat. He called India's Vishisht Bharat, which talks about, India being consolidated as one union, India being consolidated as one territory, and we have rich heritage, rich cultural heritage, which we would want to show to the world. We would want to attract tourism. We would also want to, connect ourselves with different countries, like how we connect with Central Asia itself. Then we move on to the medieval period. Medieval period, you could see a lot of there was a lot of dilemma in the European continent. We could see there was Renaissance, Reformation, there was industrial revolutions. It led to these countries coming towards India for trade and all of the other purposes. And then in the modern period, we can see we had a lot of disturbances. It was a phase where everybody was moving towards decolonization. India moved into the phase in early 1940s. Central Asians moved in the period of early 1990s. And then, of course, you've been affected by World War II, World War One, World War II, League of Nations, United Nations, Cold War, and of course, the ambit of globalization. Now, let us first start with, where did India start from? Okay. Now, we need to understand that India is a land of epics. What are epics? Epics are basically stories, stories of gods who have come and, stayed in India, who have ruled in India, who have, established India to what we are today. So there are two main epics in India. One is the Mahabharata and the other one is Ramayana. Now it's a huge epic. If you see Mahabharata, you have an entire book. Okay, like how you Muslims have the Quran, how the Christians have the Bibles. We have epics which are in complete book forms, and they're huge. The stories are very very in detail. But I will tell you a very very simple story so that you can remember. Okay, let's first start with Mahabharata. Okay, now you should remember it as a story. So Mahabharata is between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. Okay, the Kauravas are 100 brothers, and the Pandavas are five brothers. Okay, now the Pandavas are considered to be very righteous, very good, very noble, very ethical in their behavior, but Kauravas are considered bad people. Okay, they're considered to be evil in nature. So this is basically a war which happened between the brothers because they wanted to fight over a territory, they wanted to fight over their capital, Hastinapur. Okay, the capital was known as Hastinapur. Okay, so the Pandavas and the Kauravas fought among themselves. There was a huge war. The Kauravas humiliated the Pandavas. They humiliated the Pandavas' mother Kunti. They humiliated Pandavas' wife. All the five Pandavas had one wife, so they humiliated the Pandavas' wife. So there was a lot of conflict between the Kauravas and Pandavas. Finally, on the day of the battle, it was Krishna, Lord Krishna. Okay, Lord Krishna is the avatar of Vishnu. Okay, now we have three gods in the Hindu. Okay, in the Hindu religion, one is called as Brahma. Brahma, who is the creator. Vishnu, who is the preserver, and Shiva, who is the destroyer. That means we follow two major forms of religion, which is Vaishnavism, who are following Vishnu, and Shaivism, who are following Shiva. Okay, what Professor Bhokta showed you, the Shivling, that is the follower of Shaivism. And the followers of Vishnu are called Vaishnavism. And Krishna is a Vishnu, he's the Vishnu form. Okay, he is one of the avatars. Okay, what we call as a form is avatar in Hindu language. Okay, so Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu, and he was considered as a mediator during the war. As you can see, the first picture on your left hand side is Hastinapur. The second picture is Krishna, who's holding the chakra in his hand. Okay, this is a wheel. It's a wheel of chakra. And he was the one who told that, we will end the war. We will end the war on an ethical premise. And of course, the Pandavas won. That's about Mahabharata. Now let's move on to Ramayana. Now Ramayana is a little bit more interesting story. You would have probably heard. Now you come to India, you talk to any Indian, you would hear Jai Shri Ram. You would hear all of these slogans. It is associated with the epic of Ramayana. Now what is Ramayana? Ramayana is between three main characters. It is Ram, okay, who is again a form of Vishnu, his brother Lakshmana, and his wife Sita. You can see the third picture. The first one who's holding the arrow is Ram, the purple body one, his wife Sita, and Lakshmana. So it so happens that they were living in the kingdom of Ayodhya, and it so happened that Rama had to leave it for 14 years period and come out of Ayodhya and live in the forest. So when he came outside in the forest, he took his wife and his brother along with him, and he came and started living in the forest. Now it also happened that their enemy, one of the enemies that was of Ram was Ravana. Now, Ravana was living in Sri Lanka, the present day Sri Lanka that we know, which is towards the south of India. Ravana was living over there. And Ravana was the one who, decided that he has to come and, destroy Ram. He has to come and, fight in war with Ram. So what he does, he falls in love with Sita. Okay, he's very infatuated with Sita's beauty. He decides to kidnap Sita. So what he does is he starts when Ram goes for hunting, he starts calling Sita's name, and Sita is like probably my husband is calling, so she wants to walk out of the cave in which she's living in the forest. Lakshmana, her brother-in-law, that is Ram's brother, younger brother, draws a Lakshman Rekha, okay, like a kind of like a circle outside the cave, saying that you stay within the circle, you will be protected. Do not walk out of the circle. But and then he proceeds to go search for Ram. But Sita, who's very very curious about her husband, is constantly trying to look into whether I can walk out of the circle. Meanwhile, what Ravana does is Ravana, the enemy, okay, who has 10 heads. He has 10 heads. He's extremely powerful. Ravana comes in a chariot and he dresses as a sage. Okay, he comes as a very person who's very very meek, who wants arms. He comes begging, and then that is when Sita walks out of the circle to give him dakshina. Okay, to give him a little bit of food, to give him a little bit of water. She walks out of that Lakshman Rekha. Ravana immediately kidnaps her, and then he goes to Sri Lanka. Now, when Ram gets to know about this, he starts, walking through the forest. And when he walks through the forest, he sees a bunch of monkeys. Okay. Now, one of the leader of the monkeys is called Hanuman. Okay. Hanuman is considered the god of strength, the god of, who was always there for Ram and Lakshman. When Hanuman opens his chest, right, you can see Ram and Lakshman statue in that. Okay, so Hanuman was the one who decided that he'll help Rama. So on the way, if you can see from Rameshwaram, right, from the south part of India to Sri Lanka, you can see a bridge. okay, which is over the Park Street. You can see a complete bridge which is constructed with stones which has Ram written on it. Okay, so even till date, the bridge does exist. It shows that the story is true, and that is how Ram crosses the bridge, goes to Sri Lanka, fights against Ravana's brother Bakasur, who is a very strong food lover, and his sister Shurpanaki. Lakshmana cuts Shurpanaki's nose, and they have a fight with Ravana. And eventually, Ram wins. He brings back Sita to Ayodhya. You'd have seen that these pictures of India, if you've followed India in the news for the last few days, you would see this particular Ayodhya temple just opened this particular year. We had a fight over this particular territory for a long time. And finally, after the Supreme Court of India, which is the highest judicial authority, we have Supreme Court, High Court, Lower Court. Supreme Court declared the verdict that you can construct the temple, and this year the temple was being constructed, and you can see a picture of the idol, which is Lord Ram. So this is story of Ramayana and Mahabharata. This is where I would say that the Indian history starts from here. Then comes the Indus Valley civilization. Okay, I hope I'm clear. If you have any doubts, please do feel free to drop text or unmute yourself and ask. Okay. Now let's move on to Indus Valley civilization. Now you can see a map of Indus Valley civilization. It's towards the northeast, northwest part of India. It's Kashmir to Rajasthan to Gujarat to part of Pakistan. That's where the empire ruled from. Now, this entire civilization is known for having extremely urbanized setup. Okay, they had a setup called as citadel, which is basically a higher race platform where all the elites will be living, and then on the down areas where the working class will be living in. They had something called as a great bath. You can see a picture of the great bath over here. Great bath is basically where the elites would come and they would take a shower. You can see the amount of urbanized system. They had drainage system. They had seals for trade. They had a barter kind of a system. They had extremely advanced forms of urbanized setup. Along with this, they also had very good statue culture. Okay, they had something called as bearded man. Okay, they would construct people. They would have dancing girl, a very beautiful figurine of a girl dancing. They had something called as mother goddess who they used to worship. They of course had dockyards, such an advanced city because they had a little big coastline. Okay, they had a coastline from Pakistan to Gujarat. They had a dockyard at Lothal. Lothal is a territory currently at Pakistan. They had a dockyard, a shipping dockyard at that particular territory. And now Lothal is it. Back then it was before independence. It was in the territory of Indian subcontinent. Now Lothal is in Gujarat, which is under the Indian territory itself. So, what I would want to tell you about Indus Valley civilization is the amount of the effort the historians have done. Okay, you have Rakal Das Banerjee, who is one of the major historians who has discovered the territory of Indus Valley civilization, especially Rakalgiri, Dolavira, Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, Manda, the Balakot. All of these territories have been discovered, and they have understood how as a civilization they were very advanced. They had drainage system, they had pottery, they had living houses, they had very good structures. So you need to understand that India itself started on a very mature phase. India had reached that peak of civilization from a very early phase itself. That means India was a very rich country. India was not at all poor. It was only during the colonization period India became poor. India is very rich from the very beginning itself. Now let's move on to another period, okay, which is the Vedic period, okay. Now after the Indus Valley civilization comes the Vedic age. Now the Vedic age, what does the word Vedic mean? Ved. Just take VED, Ved. Ved basically means knowledge. Okay, it's a period where knowledge grew. It's a period where a lot of people started delving into the importance of science, technology, polity, economics, all of these subjects, maths, mathematics, all of these subjects started, growing together. And Vedic age has been divided into two main periods. One is the early Vedic period, and the other one is the later Vedic period. Now, let us first understand what is the main essence of the Vedic age. Now, Vedic age is divided into four Vedas. Okay, the four Vedas are Samaveda, Yajur Atharva Veda, and Rig Veda. Okay, these are the four main Vedas that we have. Each Veda has its own significance. Each Veda has its own importance. And along with this, we also have class divisions. You can see the first picture. Okay, it's a man with four heads. That is nothing but Brahma, Lord Brahma. As I said, there were three gods in Hindu, right? Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. This is Brahma. Brahma is basically considered as the god which talks about caste system. Now let me give you the idea about what are the four caste system that India has. Even till date, we have this caste system. Even till date, India has reservation for the lower caste. Even till date, lower caste face a lot of problem in India. So the highest caste is the Brahmins, okay, which is considered to be the forehead, the head of Brahma, which is basically the priests and teachers. They are considered to be the highest level in the caste hierarchy. Then you have Kshatriya. Kshatriyas are basically the arm, or what you call as the upper hand. The arm is the Kshatriyas. They are considered as a warrior class. So you would have a king who is basically a Kshatriya. You would have a army who is basically involving a lot of Kshatriyas. Now, like for example, me. Now, I come from a warrior class. If you can see, my entire name is Lakshmi Karlekar. Karlekar basically means Maharashtrian, and it also means that I come from the territory of Kshatriyas. So my ancestors were somewhere in some empire fighting, and they were basically the rulers and the warrior class. And then you have the Vaishyas. The Vaishyas are basically the your Thai area. Your Thai area is the Vaishyas. They consider to be the merchants, the farmers, the traders. They consider to be lower than the Kshatriyas. And then comes the last two classes, which is the Shudras and the Dalits. They are considered to be the feet of Lord Brahma, somebody who will not be associated and be part of the society. Shudras are basically those SCs, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, other backward class, etc. They are considered to be the outcasts. Why? They consider to be the sweepers, the laborers, people who would clean the toilets, clean the streets. I know they're very important. Hygiene, sanitation is so important in today's world. But back then, sanitation was not a big necessity. Though it was a necessity, they did not consider them as an important class. It was only the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, and the Vaishyas who were considered to be, at a better level of living, a better standard of living, and the Brahmins were considered to be very, very superior. If I have to give you an example, now just imagine that you have a Brahmin house over here, and Shudra is trying to walk across. A Shudra had to remove his slippers, hold his slippers in his hand, and keep his head down and walk in front of the Brahmin house. Do not interact with anyone. But the Brahmins would walk high and mighty, and they would be considered as the biggest upper classes. Then of course you have the four ashramas. Okay, look at the other picture that's there on your right hand side, the four ashramas. Now every person on earth, okay, whether you're an Indian or whether you're any culture, okay, you will go under these four ashramas, which is basically Brahmacharya, Grihastacharya, Vanaprasthacharya, and Sannyasa. Now, Brahmacharya is basically where you are living the life of a bachelor, like what we are all. We are all student. We are a celibate student. We are all, in the learning phase. We are a bachelor, so we are in Brahmacharya. Grihastacharya is, when we would get married, when we would have, duties of household, bearing a child, putting the child into education. That's Grihastacharya. Vanaparastha is basically when you're in the retirement phase, wherein you're trying to move away from the worldly pleasures. You've understood how life works. You're finishing your responsibilities. Your children are settling down, so you're moving towards Vanaprastha. You're moving towards a hermit life. You're trying to move towards forest. And sannyasa is when you completely become like an aesthetic, or you become like a sage. You would give up all material wealth. Your only thing will be dhyana or penance. You would move on to the part of penance. And many of the sannyasas, even till date, you will find them on the Himalayan region. If you see the geography of India, towards the north, you have the Himalayan mountains. Even till date, when you would go there, you would find people who are doing penance from the last 30 years, last 40 years. People will be, shrouded in, the cold weather. They do not wear any clothes. They would, be doing dhyana, meditation. Meditation is the biggest form of, their living. And they would beg for, alms for them to eat and survive. There would be people, if you go to Himalaya till date, you'll find people who are 110 years old, 120 years old, who would have, attained the lifestyle of a sannyasa. Now, moving further, let's quickly understand the difference between early Vedic and later Vedic period. During the early Vedic period, the caste is a little flexible. Okay, it was a little bit, it was just in the genesis stages, so it was not very hardcore. Okay, you're a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. No, it was not very hardcore. But later Vedic period became very hardcore. From your birth itself, you'll be decided. Like from my birth, I'm a Kshatriya. From the very birth itself, you'll be decided on which caste you belong to. Here in the early Vedic period, the Shudras and untouchables were not at all, treated very badly. They were, given a little bit of respect. But later Vedic period, they were being treated very, very badly. They were being highly discriminated. During the early Vedic period, women were being given greater autonomy, greater freedom. You could see women taking leadership roles. You could see women, doing a lot of household responsibility, being the, the man of the house. Women were the man of the house. But during the later Vedic period, women were, only confined to houses. Stay in your gungat, stay in your house, do only the household responsibilities. Like, main household responsibilities will be cooking, giving birth to a child, taking care of the child. That's all that, very docile role was being given to women. During the early Vedic period, the form of government was through samiti, wherein you'd have your local assembly, where all local participation will be there. But during the later Vedic period, it became like a king, only the higher authority. There was no local participation. And during the society wise, during the early Vedic period, it was very semi nomadic. You could see people who were more agriculturalist. But during the later Vedic period, it became more settled. People were not only hunting, people were becoming gathering, they were becoming settlers. Early Vedic period, it was mainly barter system. What is barter system? Barter system is basically where you exchange one thing. Now I would want a particular book. Okay, now I would want this particular book. What would I do? I would sell my phone, and then I would get the book. That is barter system. But during the later Vedic period, exchange of gold, exchange of currency began. You would have coins, silver coins, or you'd have gold coins. You would have certain amount of currency which is being exchanged. Of course, the early Vedic period depended exclusively on the text of Rig Veda, and during the later Vedic period, it moved to Yajur Veda, Samar Veda, and Athar Veda. Now let's move on to the next dynasty, a very, very crucial dynasty, especially for you Central Asians and Kazakhs, which is the Kushana dynasty. This is the first time, that India started developing very good relations with, the entire area of, Central Asia, especially through the Fargana Valley. So you can see the map, right? You can see Delhi towards, going to Pakistan, going towards Afghanistan, Hindu Kush Mountains, moving to the Pamir Mountains, then coming to Fargana Valley, then moving to Kashgar, moving towards Astana a little bit, moving towards Almaty, and then moving towards China. That's the extent of the Kushana Empire. It is here where we could see a lot of Iranian influence, a lot of Greek O influence itself, and of course, along with this, you had the Shaivite culture, worship of Shiva. One of the most famous ruler over here is called Kanishka the Great. Kanishka is a very, very famous name in the Kushana Empire. He was known to, consolidate the entire empire from, northern India to all the way to Central Asia. Imagine it's a huge territory. Imagine today having this kind of a territory. It is huge, right? It's magnanimous. And he was the one who gave in Pax Kushana. What is Pax Kushana? Talks about, the cordial, the friendly bilateral relations or multilateral relations that India had with these countries. India with Pakistan, India with China, India with Central Asia, India with Afghanistan. The entire relationship was being focused over here. One form of art that came up across was the Gandhara art. Okay, the Gandhara form of art. Okay, now India has a lot of form of art and architecture and aesthetics. One which was being propagated by the Kushana dynasty was the Gandhara art. You could see a picture of Buddha over here on your right hand side. It's a Gandhara art because they formulated Buddhism. Now let me give you a brief idea about Buddhism. Buddhism was formed by Buddha. He was the one, he was known as Siddhartha earlier. Then he went outside of his house. He saw four sites wherein he saw people who were sick, people dead man, and then he decided to live a life of penance, and he introduced the form of Buddhism, wherein Buddhism basically talks about wherein you sacrifice all your wealthy pleasures and you live of a life of an ascetic. Okay, you can see the picture of the gold coin which has Kanishka the Great, the empire, and the Gandhara form of art. Okay, so I would say that where India and Central Asia connect, it's definitely here. This is the starting point of our relationship. Then comes the Mauryan Empire. Okay, one of the major empires in India. Mauryan Empire is considered to be a huge empire which covered almost the entire of Indian subcontinent. What I was talking about, the entire Indian subcontinent, that was Mauryan Empire, right from Afghanistan to Myanmar to Sri Lanka. That was the extent of the Mauryan Empire. Now, the Mauryan Empire can be studied from two major texts. One is the Indica by Megasthenes, who was basically a Persian and a Greek traveler who came in and noticed the entire period and wrote in the book of Indica. And Kautilya's Arthashastra. Kautilya is basically also referred to as Chanakya. He gave in the Saptanga theory, or what we call as a Mandala theory, or what we call as a Shadgunya theory, which talks about the Mandala theory talks about how a king needs to rule, how a particular territory needs to be formed, how a particular country needs to, how a particular empire needs to maintain relations with anybody else. Let me give a very very simple quote. He says that if I'm your friend, okay, if we both are friends, then automatically the third person will also be our friend. Okay. But if I'm your enemy, okay, if I'm your enemy, if I would want to know what is your weakness, then I will find out who's your enemy. Your the friend's enemy will again become my friend. That is, if you have an enemy, if I maintain friendship with that particular person, I will get to know more of your weakness. So what he used to always say is that decide on who your friends. Be very very cautious. I think as international relations, we should be extremely cautious on who we decide our friends are, who we decide who will be, our good cordial relations. Like for example, India maintains really good relations with Central Asia, with Russia, with US, with United Kingdom, with Africa. We have really good relations. But with certain countries, we do not have good relations. Like with China, we do not have good relations now with Bangladesh. We do not have good relations with Pakistan. And with North Korea, we do not have good relations. We see these countries with a little bit more of caution. And the thought of viewing international relations with caution comes from Chanakya's Arthashastra itself. Now there were three major rulers during this period: Chandragupta Maurya, to Bindusara and Ashoka. The grandfather, the son, the grandfather, the father, and the son. Chandragupta Maurya was considered the founder. He defeated the Nanda Empire and established the Mauryan Empire. He is considered to be, having a lot of influence on what the Mauryan Empire studied right now. For example, in the place where I live, we have a place called Shravana Bilogula. Okay, he had come all the way to Karnataka and established the entire statue of Buddha. And along with that, you could see Bindusara. Bindusara is his son. Now, you need to understand that, Chandragupta Maurya also had very good relations with, Seleucus the Nicator. He defeated Alexander the Great, and his army general Seleucus the Nicator. He got married to Seleucus Nicator's daughter, whose name is Helena. And Bindusara is not Helena's son, but the first wife's son. And Helena is Bindusara's stepmother, or what we call as a second mother. And of course, we have Ashoka. Ashoka became the much more greater. He's called as Ashoka the Great. He's called as Devana Priyadarshini, which basically means that he's the most fond of and the most ruled and the most biggest person on the entire Mauryan Empire history itself. He followed a policy of Dhamma. Dhamma is basically righteousness. He followed something called as a path of where everybody needs to believe in ethics and morality in war. Now let me give you a very brief story about Ashoka. Ashoka was born to the mother of Dhamma, and he was living in a forest. And after a couple of years, he got into the royalty palace. He became the king, and when he was the king, he was completely on extending his territory. Okay, he would fight wars, too much of bloodshed, and then he would finally, at one war, in Kalinga War, he saw a turning point. It became a turning point of his entire life, and that is where he decided. You can see Kalinga is located towards the east of India. It is in the territory of Orissa, and it was finally that year that he decided to give up bloodshed, and he followed the policy of Dhamma, righteousness. He also established a Sarnath pillar. If you see India's capital emblem, if you see India's emblem, you can see Sarnath pillar. Something that happened in 300 BC is what we follow even till date. The Sarnath pillar. The Sarnath pillar basically has four lines clubbed together. Okay, they're merged together. They have the Ashok Chakra below it, the 24 spokes, which indicates our fight for freedom, which is through Gandhi's the chakra which he used for spinning cloth, and khadi, what we call as. And then you have the elephant, you have the horse, and then you have the bull and the lion, which is being represented on all four sides. I hope this gives you a broad understanding of the Mauryan Empire. Let's now move on to the next empire, the Gupta Gupta Empire. Now, the Gupta Empire is considered as a golden age in Indian history. Okay. Now, we're slowly moving from ancient to medieval. Okay. Now, we have now shifted to the medieval period. Okay. The Gupta period is considered to be one of the golden periods in Indian history. It's called as the era of golden history. Okay. Now, how do we understand the Gupta period? We understand through the sources of Fahim. Fahim was a Chinese traveler who came to India and was there during the Gupta period. We find it from the Allahabad pillar inscriptions. Allahabad is a place in UP. And through Kalidasa's, work. Kalidasa is basically an Hindi poet. Okay, we speak a language of Hindi over here. He's an Hindi poet who's written, a lot of, books like Abhignana Shakuntalam is again written by Kalidasa. Now, there are certain important rulers in the Gupta Empire. Start with Chandragupta, move to Samudragupta, and then move on to Chandragupta to Vikramaditya. Chandragupta was the one who established the Gupta Empire. You can see the Gupta Empire is almost in the entire northern of territory of India. It includes parts of Pakistan, North India, and as well as, completely East India. Then Samudragupta is called as the Napoleon of India. Why is he called the Napoleon? Why is a European reference over there? If you remember, Napoleon also worked into, expanding his territory. He worked exclusively. If you remember, Napoleon Bonaparte even came and annexed a few parts of Russia. What you see as the part of, St. Petersburg, Moscow, that territory was also being annexed by Napoleon, right? So, something that's called as the Napoleon of India because of the Deccan campaign. He came all the way from Patliputra, from the easternmost capital till all the way to the south of India. And then you have Chandragupta II Vikramaditya. Chandragupta II Vikramaditya is called as, he's given a lot of importance because he conquered the Middle India, what we call as the Saka Empire, what we call as the Malwa Plateau region. The Middle India near the Narmada River is where he conquered a lot of territory. So you can see how there was a consolidation of the empire which has been done. They followed a monarchy government. What is a monarchy government? Only one king will rule over it, okay? And all the remaining will be subjects. He will have a council or he'll have a committee of ministers who will assist him in the ruling process. As I said, it was called as a golden age of Indian culture. It bloomed. Why did it bloom? Because of education, because of science and technology development. Education, you could see Patliputra, Ujjain, Ayodhya. These places became centers of learning. What you can see on your right hand side, the red color structure, the red color building that you can see is the Nalanda University. The Nalanda University is the very first university which is established in India, okay, along with Taxila University. Taxila is in Pakistan, Nalanda is in India, and it's one of the major universities that led to the development of education. And of course, during the Gupta period, we could also see a lot of relevance given on Aryabhatta. Why Aryabhatta? Aryabhatta is known as the founder of zero. What you see right now, zero. India invented the number zero. Okay. Now, after we move on to understanding Gupta period, let's now understand a little bit of the styles of architecture. Okay. From here, you can see a little bit more of difference in style of architecture. The North India, okay, what we see in North India, which includes from Jammu Kashmir till all the way to Gujarat, that and all the way till Orissa, these people follow, and Northeast they follow the Nagara style of architecture. Okay, Nagara style of architecture is wherein they would have a very dome, and then they would have just a one temple. There would be no other structure surrounding it. Okay, that's a Nagara style. Dravida style has a shikara. It has a mandapa in front of it. Then it has something called as garbhagriha where the god is being placed. And then you have mixture of Nagara plus Dravida. Okay, a mixture, an assimilation, or a symmetric, or an synergist, or an addition of Nagara plus Dravida is a Vesra style. You can see certain structures in India which has an assimilation of both of them. Okay, Vesra style is a very very popular style in India which includes both the Nagara and the Dravida style. Next comes the Chola dynasty. I would always recommend you whenever you come to India, please do visit South India. I will be more than happy to be your host. And I come from a city where the Chola, Chera, Pandyas, Vijayanagara ruled. So this is something where I've seen these structures. They're huge and magnanimous. Now let me tell you about the few rulers who ruled, main rulers in Chola dynasty. Before that, Amina, am I there with you? Can you hear me? Everything is okay?
Yes, yes, I can
Okay,
hear
thank.
you.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So now in the Chola dynasty, you have two main rulers, Raja Chola and Rajendra Chola. I know the names might be a little difficult, but try to remember it as a story, okay? Of course, I've shared the slide with Amina. Amina will share it across. So just remember it as a story. Okay, so Raja Chola. Raja basically means king, okay? So Raja Chola was the one ruler who worked on maritime expert. Okay, he was one person looked into sea travel. He wanted to expand India beyond what we see as a land territory. If you know, India is a peninsula. India has the Arabian Sea, it has the Indian Ocean, and it has the Bay of Bengal. Right? It has three water bodies across. So he wanted to, explore those territories. So what did he do? He started a trade at Cholamandalam. Cholamandalam is the present Coromandel coast, which is in the eastern part. Okay, he wanted, expand the territories over the territories of Chennai, Mahabalipuram, which is in located in Tamil Nadu, and go across Southeast Asia. He developed relations with, if you see, a lot of places in Cambodia, a lot of places in Vietnam, Laos, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia. You can see a lot of relevance of Chola dynasty even till date. A lot of structures of Raja Chola and Rajendra Chola is there. Rajendra Chola was the next ruler. He was known to establish an own city. He developed an own city. Imagine starting an own city on your own, establishing trade, establishing historical structures, establishing a lot of people, connect, religion, policies. And that city was called as Gangai Konda Cholapuram. Okay, which basically means city of the entire Cholas, the Gangas of Cholas. And one of the most two, I would tell you only two major art forms which have been followed here. The two major structures which was here was the Brihadeshwara temple. I hope you all know about UNESCO World Heritage Sites. UNESCO basically gives World Heritage Sites, and Brihadeshwara Temple is one UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is located in the city of Tanjavur, and Tanjavur is located in Tamil Nadu. It is around 200 kilometers from Tamil Nadu's capital Chennai. Beautiful structure. You can see a picture of it. Let me give you a very brief idea about the structure. Okay, this structure that you can see, it doesn't have any cement. It doesn't have anything. A binding material is not there. Have you seen puzzle? How jigsaw puzzles are there, right? The structure, the gopuram that you can see, right? The shikara that you can see is constructed from jigsaw puzzles. Every stone will end with another, so it would connect like a magnet. It would connect, and it is earthquake proof. It is almost, I think, around 1,000 years plus till date. Whatever earthquake is coming, the structure is not fallen. On the top you can see over here, right? You can see on top there's a big shikara on the top of shikara. This is a structure which has been kept. But to keep this structure, they built a 3 kilometer ramp. On the ramp it was being rolled, and then on top they came. And as you remember, Professor Bhokta was showing Shiva, right? The biggest Shiva temple, the Shiva temple which is being worshipped the most purest form of Shiva is here. It is located in Brihadeshwara temple. It's a huge Shiva around 15 feet, a monolithic Shiva, made of one complete stone. And you can see in front of the temple is a Nandi Mandapa. So every vehicle, every god will have a vehicle. Okay, every god. What is vehicle? Vehicle is basically, an animal which will assist the god. Like for example, my name is Lakshmi. My name also represents God. Lakshmi means the goddess of wealth. Okay, who's Lakshmi? Lakshmi is nothing but Vishnu's wife. You remember actually Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma, right? Vishnu's wife is Lakshmi, and Lakshmi is basically goddess of wealth. And Lakshmi also has a Vahana. What is Lakshmi's Vahana? Lakshmi has two Vahanas. One is a white owl. Okay, what you see in the night, the owl, and the other one is white elephant. Okay, so like this, for Shiva, it was Nandi. It was basically a bull, which was a Vahana for him. And then another thing that you can also see along with Chola dynasty, along with the Brihadeshwara temple, is Nataraja statue. You come to any Indian house, okay? You come to any Indian house in South India or in North India, you will find a Nataraja statue. You might think, what is this Nataraja statue? It is nothing but dancing Shiva. It's a dancing Shiva, which is, Shiva when he opens his third eye. Shiva has three eyes. The third eye is open only when he gets angry. When he's angry, when he's ferocious, when he opens his third eye, he takes the form of a Nataraja. He starts dancing in ferociousness. So you walk into next time to any Indian house, you find Nataraja statue, tell them that I do know about Nataraja statue. I know it is coming from the Chola dynasty itself. Next comes The next comes is the Sangam age. Okay, now these three are the Chola, Chera, and Pandyas ruled together. Please look into the map in the south. You can see the Chola emblem is tiger. The Chera emblem, the Chera ruled in the southern part of Kerala. Their emblem was bow and arrow. And Pandyas ruled in the southern part of Tamil Nadu. And their symbol was the fish. fish. Okay. Now, how do you understand the Chola, Chera, and Pandya? It is through the literature of Tirukural as well as in megalith structures. Tirukural is a scholar, a Tamil scholar who wrote extensively about these empires and megalith structures. Please look into the stone structure there on top. It is basically where a stone will be kept, and then there will be two parallel stones kept together. People can live under it. It's like a structure, it's like a mini cave. It would save you, protect from you from rain, sunlight, etc. Now, the main ruler is called as Keren Senguvatan. His capital city was Vanji. Vanji is located in Kerala. And the Pandya main ruler is called as Ari Pandya Kandam Nendu Chelian. He was the one who ruled in the city of Madurai. Madurai is located in the south of Tamil Nadu. Now, the Cheran and Pandyas were basically local chieftains. They were a very, very wealthy societal class who believed in barter trade. And it was such a good empire. The Chola, Chera, and Pandyas, what we call as Sangam literature, what we call Tamil is the oldest language in the world. Okay, not only in India, in the world. And it was being propagated by these three dynasties. It became so famous that people from abroad came. You have the Periplus of the Earthen Sea, the Red Sea, which is written by Erasmus. He was the one who came to India and studied the entire structure of the Chola, Cheras, and Pandyas. I hope you've understood a little bit of the Sangam age, and then let's move on to the main period, the Delhi Sultanate. This is where medieval period started picking up a lot more. Now, the Delhi Sultanate period is being divided into four dynasties: the Mamluk dynasty, the Khilji dynasty, the Tughlaq dynasty, and the Sayyid and the Lodi dynasties. Let me repeat. The Delhi Sultanate was being divided into four dynasties. You can see a map of them, right, in your right hand side. Look at the Mamluk dynasty, mainly North India, Khilji dynasty, Pakistan and North India. Tughlaq dynasty, Pakistan, North India, East India plus South India. Lodi dynasty, only parts of East India and a little bit of North India. Now let's talk about the major rulers in each one of these dynasties. Now the Mamluk sultans are basically the slave dynasties. They are considered to be the slaves of the kings. And one of the most popular slaves that was over here is called Qutbuddin Aibak. Now, Qutbuddin Aibak was considered as Lak Baksh. He was considered to be very generous. He was considered to be a very, very benevolent ruler. He was considered to be a giver of money, and hence he was considered as Lak Baksh. Lak Baksh basically means lakh. In Indian currency, it is ones, tens, thousands, hundreds. Then you move ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, lakh, crore. Okay, it was considered as a lakh baksh. And you can see one of the earlier Muslim dynasties in India. What I spoke till now was the Indian dynasties, right? You could see the form of Deobandi Islam coming in. You could see Allah being propagated over here, Quran being worshipped, people doing namaz over this time. People do 5 times namaz, people would, do fasting, Eid will be celebrated, etc. So you could see Qutub Minar, which has been constructed during the Qutbuddin Aibak's time. Of course, after him it was Iltutmish. Iltutmish became the first Muslim sovereign ruler of India. Okay, and after his rule, he handed the rule to his daughter, who was Razia Sultan. Now, Razia Sultan, as a female, when she came to power, she was being objectified. People, objected her. They said that, how can we be under a woman control? But she's so strong. Okay, she's so strong, and she became the first woman Muslim ruler. Razia Sultan is even till date worshipped to a lot of Muslim communities. They revere her, they respect her, they legitimize her because for a woman to come and rule in a Muslim era, it was very, very difficult. But she made a mark, a very substantial mark for herself. Then comes the Khilji dynasty. The Khilji dynasty, the first founder of Khilji dynasty is Jalaluddin Khilji. He's considered to be a saint ruler. Why saint? He's considered to be a lover of religions. He's considered to be propagating Muslim, Islam along with Hinduism. He's also worked towards the societal welfare. But his daughter got married to a ruler called as Alauddin Khilji. And Alauddin Khilji was a very, 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 very bad ruler. He was a person who believed in, having everything under his control. He was a very, very ambitious ruler. He wanted the entire India under his control. He had very, very stringent market regulations. People had to, everything was being taxed. Everything had to, being given as revenue to the government. He had something called as, the Deccan expedition. He walked all the way to the south. He had a lot of, places which have been conquered through, illegal means, wars which have been fought, which are, not on a very, very ethical, on a moral view. If you remember one film that came out across in India, which is a very, very famous film by Sanjay Leela Bansali, which is called Padmavat. which talks about how he defeated the Rajputs. The Rajputs were another empire ruling in Rajasthan. He defeated them. He wanted to he loved the wife, the king's wife. He wanted get in a physical relationship with her, but finally she committed Johar. What is Johar? Where all the women, to protect their dignity, they would jump into a well of fire. Okay, they would jump into it and they would sacrifice their life so that their body, their soul doesn't touch the harmful, doesn't meet the harmful eyes of the man, or the man cannot physically abuse her. So along with this, he also had an efficient spy system. He had measures against nobility. All the nobles had to be respectful towards him. He would not allow any people to do anything across against his means. Then comes the Tughlaq dynasties. Tughlaq dynasty was mainly ruled by Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Muhammad bin Tughlaq was known for his transfer of capital. One mistake that he did was transferring his capital from Devagiri to Daulatabad and Daulatabad back to Devagiri. Devagiri is in the north, Daulatabad is in the south. He had to transfer people. Imagine transferring people is not a very easy task. Imagine if I tell you that, okay, now everybody pack your bags, let's go now to Turkey. Okay, and then once you go to Turkey and say, okay, now I've seen Turkey, now again pack your bags, let's go back to Astana. Not easy, right? That's what he did, an error. He also had policies of taxation in the Doab region. Doab is a very, very fertile region. It includes a lot of rivers, a lot of, slushy lands where, a lot of agriculture can be grown. And it's also known for token currency. And of course, the last dynasty that was there in the Delhi Sultanate after the Mamluk, the Khilji, and Tughlaq was Said and Lodi dynasty. Very, very manual, very, very minute rulers came in and went over there. But that's not much important. For us, what we need to know is from the slave dynasty, Qutbuddin Aibak, Iltutmish, and Razia Sultan. From Khilji dynasty, Jalaluddin Khilji and Alauddin Khilji. And Tughlaq dynasty, Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Now, next comes Vijayanagara Empire. Now, this is the place where I come from, Bangalore, okay, Karnataka. Now, Karnataka had the Hoysala Empire, it has the Bahmani rulers, it has the Vijayanagara rulers, and later during the independence time, it also has the Wadiyar ruler. But the main important empire, which I would say is the Vijayanagara Empire. You come to Karnataka, you see the entire reminiscence of Vijayanagara Empire even till date. It was established by Haryana I and Bukharaya I. He was the one who established the Vijayanagara Empire in 1336. And it was divided into four periods, the Vijayanagara Empire: Sangama, Saluva, Tuluva, and Aravidu. It was during the Tuluva period, Krishnadeva, who was the main ruler in Vijayanagara Empire, came across and he built the city of Hampi. Hampi is located in the north of Karnataka. It is very, very beautiful, an architectural marvel. Anytime you come to Karnataka, you have to, visit 450 kilometers from Karnataka, 450 kilometers from Bangalore, go to Hampi. It's a beautiful architectural marvel, full of Dravidian style of architecture. From Vijayavatal Swami temple to the stone chariot. What you can see right now is the stone chariot, your right hand side. Imagine the intricate carvings that have been done with stone. There was only chisels and hammers which have been done. There's something called as musical pillars over here. Okay, when I visited there, pillars sing. You hit on the pillars. There's a sound which is being done from the pillars. There are floating pillars. Below the pillars you can move a paper, you can move a cloth. Okay, and Hampi was known to be such a rich empire. It was such a rich city. It is believed that they had diamonds and gold being sold on the streets, and people would not even lock their houses. People would leave their houses empty when they're going for a trip. There was no kind of robbery during this empire. Okay, it was such a great empire. It collapsed during the later reign of Aliya Ramaraya, who's the son-in-law of Krishnadevaraya. And during the Battle of Talikoti in 1556, the empire collapsed. The empire saw its end. But it is such a rich and a very, very important empire to understand how rich India as an empire, India as a country itself, was a sovereign nation. Next comes the Mughal Empire, something which I think all of you would have studied in a syllabus or heard something about it. The Mughal Empire is again where we establish connection, where Central Asians and Indians again come in touch. It was the first Mongol invasion led by Babur in 1526. Babur comes all the way from Mongolia, Inner Mongolia, from the what we see from the Han culture, from what we see from the Zhongzhou Minzu, what we see as the entire Mongolian culture. From there, it is where he comes into India, and and Babur establishes the entire Mughal Empire in India. Babur was the one who had a lot of importance on religion. You could see a lot of mixed Persian, Arabic, and Hindi languages just being mixed together to create the language of Urdu. Babur was considered to be the founder of Mughal Empire. Along with it, he was also considered to be a very, very, benevolent ruler because it was a new time. It was his first time in India. He was trying to establish an empire. There were already existing empires. Mughal Empire was a very, very small area just surrounding the territory of Delhi, what we see the modern Delhi territory. And then comes his son Humayun. Humayun also was considered to be a very benevolent ruler. He also tried to expand the territories from Delhi till all the way to Haryana, UP, all the way till coming towards the south is where Humayun. And later Humayun dies. He falls from the stair of the library and he dies. And then comes the most important ruler of the Mughal Empire, Akbar. I think you'd have seen a film of Akbar, Jodha Akbar, where he falls in love with the Jodha princess, and there's a marital alliance which is being done. Back then, people would given girls and boys would get married in history period, wherein they would try to maintain relations with them. So if I'm coming from a particular dynasty, I get married to another dynasty. That means both these dynasties will be eventually closer in nature. Now Akbar is one person who had nine gems. He had somebody called it Navratna. Now, what are these Navratnas? Navratnas are people who are who have speciality in literature, music, polity, economics, governance, administration. All of these nine gems will form the council of ministers for the king. And Akbar was the king. He had his own religion called as Din Ilahi. He was very, very tolerant towards Hindus and Muslims. I think this is one period that we can see that both Hindus and Muslims lived together, they coexisted. Secular fabric of India was there. And then, of course, comes Jahangir. Jahangir was his son who came after a lot of prayers. He had his son. And Jahangir was a very, 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 he was a very drunkard. Okay. He would, consume drugs. He would, consume liquor. And he would, half the time, he would be, lost in his senses. So it was Jahangir's wife, Noor Jahan, who took in the room. It was Akbar's daughter-in-law, Noor Jahan, who, worked into, sustaining the big empire of Akbar and then finally giving it to Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan is known for having a lot of Indo-Islamic architecture. You come to Delhi, you come to Agra, you come towards a little bit of south towards the Bamni area and everything. You would see a lot of Indo-Islamic architecture. Why? Because you could see a lot of Mughal reminiscence, a lot of Central Asian architecture. You would find a lot of similarity between. I'll show you a couple of pictures. It's during this time that Shah Jahan built Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal is another UNESCO heritage. It's built out of white marble. Shah Jahan built this Taj Mahal for his wife. When his wife was in the dying stages, he said his wife Mumtaz Mahal. Okay, he told his wife Mumtaz Mahal, "Don't worry, I will build you a beautiful, beautiful, structure." And his even till date, Mumtaz Mahal's body is being kept in the inner chamber of Taj Mahal itself. And very unfortunate, what happened is, Shah Jahan had a lot of sons. Okay, and one among his sons, Aurangzeb was not his eldest son, but Aurangzeb was very, very greedy for power. Okay, he wanted to, immediately come to power. So what he did is, the minute his mother died, he put Shah Jahan into a jail. Okay, and the jail is Agra jail. Okay, and Agra jail is just opposite Taj Mahal. Taj Mahal is on the Yamuna River. So Shah Jahan would, look from the window towards Taj Mahal. He would remember his wife, his dead wife. He would sit, and then one day, finally, he dies in the jail itself. Aurangzeb is considered to be very, 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 very brutal ruler. He's considered to be very, very bad. He's considered to be one of the worst rulers that worst Mughal rulers that India would have ever seen. He was known for centralized form of governance and very, very stringent measures. Of course, after Aurangzeb, his successors became weak. The Mughals, you could see that during Jahangir's time itself, Thomas More, you could see a lot of Vasco da Gama walking in during Zamorin's period. A lot of these Portuguese, British started walking in, and finally, the last ruler of the Mughal Empire, Bahadur Shah Zafar, was a part of the later Mughal period. He was very weak. He was very meek. He was very weak and meek, and finally, it handed over the territory to the British Empire. Okay, now, look at these beautiful pictures. You can see Taj Mahal, you could see the Red Fort, you could see Humayun's tomb, you could see a mosque which is being built. You can see even till date these structures do exist. Okay, the Red Fort, which you can see right below, is considered to be one of the most important days. We hoist our flag on Republic Day. Taj Mahal, of course, is a UNESCO heritage, and the mosque and the tomb is considered to be very, very sacred places for Muslims to worship. I've gone to the Red Fort, I've been to Taj Mahal, I've seen Humayun's tomb. They are beautiful Islamic architecture. What you see in the Fergana Valley, the Uzbekistan region, You see a lot of beautiful architecture over the Silk Route, right? The same kind of Islamic architecture style, wherein you have the minarets, you have a dome, you have the entire structure which is being built over a solidified platform. The same kind of a similar style of architecture seen, the Islamic style of architecture seen even in India as well. Now, let me move about one empire before I dwell into the later part of the colonization. One empire which stood against the Mughals, a very, very famous empire, the Maratha Empire. Now, I'm a Maharashtrian. I come from the Maratha Empire. As I said earlier, I'm a Kshatriya. So, my forefathers served in this very empire. They were, in the army of the Maratha Empire itself. The Maratha Empire was being established by Shahji and later by his son Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, who's you can see his portrait over there. He was very short man, around 5 feet odd, and died at the age of 50, but achieved tremendously at his age. He fought against the Mughals, he fought against the Britishers, and he fought with a method called as guerrilla warfare. Okay, guerrilla warfare is where you give a sudden surprise attack on your enemy. You would hide behind the mountains. The enemy is approaching. You would attack the enemy and again come and hide behind the mountains. That is exactly what Chhatrapati Shivaji did. You could see the map. You could see a lot of there were a lot of corresponding empires. You can see the Mughals ruling, you can see the Nizam ruling, you can see the Mysore Empire ruling, you can see the Maratha Empire ruling. The purple color area is the Maratha Empire. Okay. You could see the Maratha again being divided further. The Gaikwads, the Holkars, the Scindia, the Bonsles, the Peshwas, they are considered as the confederacies of the Maratha Empire. Shivaji had a dream of Swarajya. You could see a flag flying, right? An orange color flag, right? It is a flag symbolizing freedom, a flag symbolizing that we should be free from any kind of foreign invasions. We need to be free from any kind of European invasions, and we need to live on our own. That's the reason you could see that there were a lot of Anglo-Maratha war, Britishers versus the Marathas. Now let's come to the colonization period. Before that, Amina, all of you are there with me. Any doubts till now? All okay?
Yes,
Okay,
everything.
perfect. Oh, okay. I just want to know in between. Okay. So now let's move on to the modern age. Okay. Now, what we learned till now is the ancient phase. We learned the medieval India. Now we are moving towards modern India. Okay. A little bit towards modern India. Okay. It's now again the period of, early 1600s. Okay. Now, early 1600s, you need to remember that India did not have directly a colonizer. Okay. It was not directly the British who came in. Just the way how you were under the Russian control, we were initially under the Portugal control. The Portuguese could not establish much of their empire. Vasco da Gama only came as a trading settlements. Yeah, have you seen one thing about the colonization period? Anywhere you study the African colonization of the French and the British, you study about the Latin American colonization of Spanish and Portugal. You study about the Chinese colonization, British. You study about the Indonesian colonization by Dutch. You see, all of these colonizers came with one intention of having trade. They came to India towards the southern part of India as well as towards the area of Gujarat towards the Kutch region, and they came only for trading purposes. Eventually, they started establishing their own companies. The Portugal and Dutch could not sustain long because they had their own interests. Portugal had territories in Latin America, Dutch had territories in Indonesia. They split away. The French company stayed in, and the British came and established the East India Company. But they were also fighting. The French and the British fought among themselves. What we call as the Anglo-French rivalry. During this period in Karnataka, there was a ruler called as Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan. Tipu Sultan sided the French against the Britishers. In fact, a couple of wars also he won against the Britishers. Imagine winning against Britishers, right? India was a very, very capable, very, very having a very, very good military base and a very, very sustainable empire itself. Now let's move into talking about how the British consolidated its empire. Okay, the British is one country which said who believe that it's an empire on which the sun never sets. The British had their entire colonial territory. And you can see the map. When the British came, these were the empires which were ruling over here. You had the Sultanates, you had the Nawabs, you had the Nizams, you had the Mughals, you had the Rajputs, you had the Durrani Empire. You had several empires ruling in India during the British arrival. Let's talk about a little bit of the East India Company. Okay, the East India Company came in 1600s. They only wanted to come for trade purposes. Then eventually they started, defeating the fall of Madras, the fall of the fall of Calcutta. All of these, the Diwani rights were being given. They got in the political rights and they started fighting battles. One of the major battles in which India lost a lot of territories, the Battle of Plazi, where Siraj-ud-Daulah lost against the Britishers. And from then onwards, we can see that, the Britishers started, establishing their entire company. The Britishers are considered to be very, very bad for us because we had a lot of famines because of them. We had, a lot of, wealth of our country. When the Britishers came, before the Britishers came, we were holding around 16% of the world GDP and became less than 4%. Okay, we became a poor country. People are being exploited. People were being, pushed into, there was no government positions being given to us. Everything was by the Britishers. We were basically treated as slaves in our own country, and we could not even revolt against them because they had guns. They were so bad towards us. Even the gun, would have, the pork. India doesn't eat pork. India doesn't eat much of pig. It's been prohibited in many of our religions. They would, coat it with pig fat, and they would have asked us to chew into it. The Britishers were so brutally bad for us. Of course, the Britishers had some merits. They brought in the railway education. They brought in the railway system. They brought in the Macaulays into the education system. Charles Wood dispatch has been brought in. But at the same time, we would still consider Britishers as bad because, they basically brought our economy completely down. Finally, in 1857, somehow, Indians mustered courage under the leadership of, Mangal Pandey, Rani Lakshmi Bai, all of them, they all fought against the Britishers, and of course, we were not successful, but it was one start of a rebellion. India became against the Britishers. India did not want the Britishers to continue come and rule. It had almost been around 250 years. Imagine. 1600 to 1857 is almost 257 years. We had to again, continuously fight. Of course, we did not receive independence in 1857. We received independence almost 90 years later. So we were almost ruled for almost 300 plus years of colonization, which is not easy, right? 300 years ruled by Britishers who did not understand our culture, who would do, demean our women, rape our women, they would, ill-treat our kings. They had a very bad policy, they would have doctrine of lapse. And they would have, wherein they would annex territories. If you do not have any legal heir, they would annex the territory. They would have a policy of subsidiary alliance, wherein, the kings had to, pay heavy revenue to the British government. So a lot of these systems were being followed by the Britishers. Finally, what happened is in 1857, we had the first war of Indian independence. We fought hard. Mangal Pandey, Rani Lakshmi Bai, all of them fought. And finally, in 1913, right, Gandhi also started fighting. The father of our nation is Mahatma Gandhi. He had something called Swadeshi Andolan. Swadeshi Andolan is make in India, okay, wherein we would grow our own khadi, we would have our own crops, we would not depend on the Britishers. The Britishers' trade will be completely stopped. Let me give you an example of this, okay. Now, if you see the cotton shirts that we wear, or the cotton dhotis, the cloth that is being worn below, okay, that is called as a dhoti. That was basically made of fine muslin, okay. The fine muslin, what the Britishers would do is they would take cotton from India, send it to Manchester in United Kingdom, make it, weave it into a complete finished product, and send the finished product to India and sell it at a higher price. So we are giving the raw materials, and we are also in that purchasing class. So you tell me, should we actually pay so much amount? No, the Britishers, they gained a lot of profit from India. And that is something that Gandhi did not like. Gandhi fought. He helped even the apartheid movement in Africa as well. And then during the 1919, when there was this particular rebellion that was there, when all Indians, would come and, fight at Jallianwala Bagh, and the Britishers would surround Jallianwala Bagh, and hundreds of people were being killed by bullet shots. India did not have bullets by then. India did not have gun technology. India had only bow and arrows. India had, sickles, swords. These are all the main technologies. Or, bombs that were like in the form of baruds. What you see, right? The bombs which have been blasted off. That is all that India had. India did not have gun technology. So in Jallianwala Bagh, when India's assembled as, as a form of rebellion, a peaceful protest, all of these were being, bombarded with heavy bullets. They were being pelted with bullets, and all of the people died. 1920, we had a non-corporation movement where, people would, walk across, the entire India. You had the Dandi March, you had, the Salt Satyagraha movement, which is again being led by 19 by Gandhi himself. 1923, we had Satyagraha. Satyagraha, what does the word Satyagraha mean? Satya means truth, and Graha means a quest. A quest for truth, quest for us to achieve independence. And then 1930, we had the Dandi March, where the Salt Satyagraha, and finally, 1942, we had the Quit India movement. We fought so hard. We had the moderates, which were being led by Gandhi, Lal Balpal. We had the extremists who were being led by Subhash Chandra Bose. Subhash Chandra Bose also had a Navy Army station in Japan. All of them fought together. And finally, in 1947, according to Mountbatten Plan, India was being divided into two. Pakistan and India and East Bangladesh, which was back then Pakistan and then became Bangladesh in 1971 Liberation War. We were all being divided, and finally we got independence on 15th August 1947. A day prior to us is Pakistan's independence, 14th August 1947. When we got independence, okay, on the night of 14th August, when it struck 12 o'clock, okay, when it became 15th August, our first Prime Minister of India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who's also called as, Chacha Nehru, because, children loved him. In fact, Children's Day, November 14th, is celebrated on his birthday. He gave a speech. The speech is called as Tryst with Destiny. The speech is called as Tryst with Destiny. Let me read out the speech for you. It says, long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge, not wholly or in full measure, but with very substantially stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom. India became finally a country free from the British clutches, and India started moving towards a path of sovereign nation, completely, independent on its own view. Now let's talk about what was the initial phase of India. We are moving towards modern India from 1947 till date. I'll quickly cover this and then I'll open the floor for questions. My main agenda over here is talk about how there was a parliamentary form of government which has been established, a federal structure wherein we have a parliament which has been set up, and along with that we also follow a union form of a government, union and a state form of government, a federal setup wherein both the union and the state would collaborate and form policies for the welfare of India. Now, you should understand that parliamentary form of government is also followed in Britain. It's also followed in UK. We adopted a little bit from UK. We adopted a little bit from US. We adopted a little bit from Russia. We adopted a little bit from Irish. Like for example, our fundamental duties is from Russia. For our fundamental rights is from US. Irish includes directive principles of state policy. United Kingdoms includes parliamentary form of governance. So a lot of these, constitutions came together, and during the Constituent Assembly, which has been proposed by M. N. Roy in 1934, and finally the Constituent Assembly, which has been formed in the early 1950s, they basically, which has been led by what we call as Bhim Rao Ambedkar, B.R. Ambedkar. You can see a person sitting right in the middle with a coat. That person is B.R. Ambedkar. The right center person is B.R. Ambedkar. The Constituent Assembly, the reason why a constitution had to be formed was established by Sir C. Rajagopalachari, and they basically worked towards forming the entire constitution. The Muslim League was very against us. They wanted to have two constituent assemblies. They wanted to have two separate states, and that is where India became separated with Pakistan, and a constituent assembly was being formed. Let me just outline you about. We have almost around 450 articles, 8 to 12 schedules. We have around 100 plus amendments till date. But our constitution states for one particular thing, which is a preamble, which is the preface of the constitution, the beginning of our constitution. Now, what does the preamble say? It says, we the people of India, have solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic to all secure all its citizens. That is sovereign. Sovereign basically means no external interference. Socialist basically means you have a social setup wherein the government will intervene for welfare. Secular, all religions are equal. Democratic, parliamentary form of government. Republic, wherein the head of the state is there, and they would secure all of its citizens for what? For justice, social, economic, political justice, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, worship, equality of status and opportunity, and promote all among them fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and unity and integrity of a nation. And on the 26th of November 1949, we adopted the Constitution of India. So you can see this is the main essence of our constitution. This is a list of all the prime ministers from India, from right way from Nehru to you can see Lal Bahadur Shastri. Let me tell you a very interesting fact about LBS, Lal Bahadur Shastri. He was the first prime minister who came all the way to Tashkent, which is the capital of Uzbekistan. He died in Tashkent actually. Okay, there was a lot of conspiracy. There's a period of Cold War. Okay, and he did not want to side with Russia and did not want to side with US. There's a lot of conspiracy that during the Cold War, the Russians, tried to poison him up. His servant, gave him a very poisoned milk and then he died. He was one prime minister who went from India alive and his dead body returned from Tashkent back to India. LBS. There's a very beautiful film on him called as Tashkent Files. If you ever get a chance, do watch about LBS's life. It's a very, very intriguing documentary on how, India's prime minister visits Central Asia, but his dead body comes back to us. Then you have Indira Gandhi, who was Nehru's daughter, Moraji Desai, a very strong contender for Indira Gandhi. She ruled for 10 years plus. Rajiv Gandhi, her son, again ruled again for a solid period. Indira Gandhi was being shot. Rajiv Gandhi also was being shot. That led to a lot of family miseries. PV Narasimha, I'll talk about a little later about his LPG reforms. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who was the main visionary leader of what we call as the Bharatiya Janata Party, of which Narendra Modi belongs to. And then, of course, you have Manmohan Singh as well, who was a Congress leader. There are two main parties in India. The Congress, leaders like Nehru, Manmohan Singh, Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi all come from Congress. Rahul Gandhi come from Congress. Sonia Gandhi comes from Congress. Then you have the BJP, Bharatiya Janata Party, where Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Narendra Modi, all of them come in. Our current Prime Minister's name is Narendra Modi. This is a list of presidents of India. Our first president was Dr. Rajendra Prasad. His birthday is also celebrated as Teachers' Day in India. We have Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, whose birthday is being celebrated as Teachers' Day of India. And then you have all the other prime ministers who have been followed. One of my most favorite presidents of India is Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. He's considered who was given the Wings of Fire and Vision 2022 of his main works is very, very critical. Our current president of India is Draupadi Murmu. She's ruling from 2022. She's in the post of the president. Now let's talk about the Indian economy from 1947. After the Britishers left, how did we grow up? Because if you remember, even 1989, the Russians collapsed. You had the entire fall of the Berlin Wall, and then finally, the Soviet Empire collapsed, and then the two reforms came in from Gorbachev, which is called as glasnost, and perestroika, which is openness, right? And finally, during the early 1990s, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan all started getting independent. You had Belarus or Azerbaijan, all of these countries started, subsequently getting independent. Same way in 1947, what we had is something called as, the 5-year plans, wherein, we could focus on agriculture, industry, and service sector. We had a green revolution, wherein it would focus more on, using the GMO seeds, genetically modified seeds. And at the same time, we also had a lot of border issues. Talk about our two of our major troublesome neighbors, Pakistan and China. Pakistan has this territory called as LOC, which is cutting India through the Siachen Glacier. It's called as the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, where even till date a lot of terrorist activities happen over here. Lashkar-e-Toiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, parts of the regimes of Taliban, all of them fight in this particular territory of POK. We have a couple of wars. We fought the war of 65, 71, 99, the recent wars of, post 2015, a lot of wars with Pakistan. And then, of course, we have China, which is across the border of LAC, line of actual control. Line of actual control is crossing across the Aksai Chin. You can see the red territories. That's again claimed by China. Arunachal, part of Arunachal Pradesh in East India has again been claimed by China. So China and Pakistan are two eminent enemies for India. I know for you Central Asians, you see China as an investment partner. You see China as in boosting, your economy. But for us, China is definitely not a very good neighbor that we would choose for. Now, what happened in 1990s, right? When you became independent, what happened for us? We too, had to, develop our economy much further. Now, this is, after the war of China with the 62 war and everything. India also had to, revamp its structure. India wanted to take loans from the International Monetary Fund as well as from World Bank, and they reached out to them, IMF and World Bank. Back then, the Prime Minister was PV Narasimha, and the Finance Minister was Dr. Manmohan Singh. They go ask IMF and World Bank. They knock the door. They said, we want loan. India wants loan. India wants to grow. And then they say that, look, we understand you need loan, but it's just the end of Cold War. But we would, give you certain conditions. We would give you a bailout package. We will give you a loan with certain conditions. What was the main condition they said? They said that, you need to have a new deal. You need to have a new deal which includes the policies of LPG. It includes the policies of LPG. What does L stands for? Liberalization. What does P stand for? Privatization. And what does G stand for? Globalization. I know this is a lot of information for you to overload, but just remember it as a story, right? That when India went to IMF and World Bank, they gave us a condition that, you need to adopt a new deal. You need to adopt LPG. What is LPG? Liberalization. Liberalization is basically free from government control. Let's move into from a socialist economy to more of a competent free trade market economy where it will work on the hand of laissez-faire, where, market prices will decide on its own. There'll be a free and a fair and a very competent market. That's liberalization. Privatization. Privatization is wherein, private companies will now come. There'll be more of public private partnership. There'll be more of, more private enterprises. In India, everything is privatized right now, except for two sectors. One is railway sector. Railways again under the control of government of India. And the second thing is the nuclear programs, the nuclear autonomous programs which have been established by Homi Jahangir Baba. They are continuing to be under the control of the government of India itself. Apart from railway and nuclear sector, everything in India is privatized. Parts of defense sector has also been, sent. We have the S-400 missile coming from Turkey. We have, F-35 fighter jets coming from US. We have, a lot of, these companies which are, merging with, collaborating with India for their defense technologies. Nuclear technology, we are, there's something called as axis of evil. I don't know how many of you have heard about this. AQ Khan's network in Pakistan, Homi Jahangir Baba, and North Korea. What we see, Kim Jong Un, he keeps on saying, right, I have a button under me. I will, blast the world with it. All of this is, very closely intertwined. And of course, then we have globalization, where India opens its economic activities to the world. India believes in having foreign relations. India's foreign relations with a lot of countries, but I would like to end my presentation with India's relations with Central Asia. Look at the figures, the mass difference between before LPG and after LPG, how much of our fiscal currencies, GDP, liabilities reduced, macro stability increased. Lastly, I would conclude with, during the globalization phase, India developed relations with a lot of countries. India became closer to Japan. India became closer to, Africa. India became closer towards US. India became closer towards Russia. India started relations with, Europe, etc. But one of the most important things for today's class will be India's relations with Central Asia. Now, as I said, Jammu Kashmir, the territory of Jammu Kashmir, Ladakh, was the main connecting point for, a lot of our relations. Right from the Kushana period to Mughal period to, even till date, Ladakh is one of our crosswords. And a lot of, works have been written on this. If you read K. Variku's work, right? If you remember last time Ramakrishna Pradhan had worked in, right? Professor Ramakrishna Pradhan. A lot of them are written about Ladakh itself. The Mongol rulers, as I mentioned, the Silk Route that we can see, right? The renewed Silk Route, which is done by BRI, which is Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. Even India was, a part of the Silk Route, initial Silk Route, not the BRI, the initial Silk Route. India got a lot of, benefits. Trade in terms of spices, horses were being exchanged. We can see the Iran Chabar port was mainly our connecting point for Central Asia. Because Central Asia is landlocked, and we are also, having not a direct connection. So we have to come either from Pakistan and Afghanistan there. But Pakistan and Afghanistan are very volatile and very hostile neighbors for us. So we come from Iran Chabar port thing. We have the INSTC development, which is the International North-South Transport Corridor. We are also a member of the Akshabat Agreement, which talks about, very cordial relations. The picture that you can see is all the prime ministers and presidents of uh, Kazakhstan and all the Central Asian countries, along with our Prime Minister Narendra Modi and our External Affairs Minister, EA Minister S. Jaishankar, towards the extreme left hand side, and towards the extreme right, you can see our NSA leader, National Security Advisor leader Ajit Dovar. We are also imagining the TAPI pipeline, the Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India pipeline. It's of course only in paper till date, never come into reality because, of course, look, Afghanistan and Pakistan coming together with us is $1 million question, right? We don't know how strict and, how tightened our relations are with them. But of course, you have also opened as much as for us. You have the C5+1 policy, 5 Central Asian plus one. You have the Nearly Jewel strategy where you're trying to develop into infrastructure and everything, where India is also heavily investing in energy sectors, especially oil, and we're trying to also have a lot of pharmaceutical industries. Trust me, India has a lot of medical ties with you. A lot of medical students from here come and study in Central Asia. When I came to Central Asia, when I was coming back, especially, I had a lot of people coming back home, and I was very stunned to see the amount of Indians in my flight. I would always, wonder. And as I said earlier as well, Kazakhstan has remained very deep in my mind and my heart. I can never get over of it. I'm waiting. I'm literally dying to come back to the country. Uh, just last week I'd been to Singapore. Just 2 days back I came from Singapore. But I'm never missing that country as much as I miss Kazakhstan. The nature, the snow, the fun-filled activities I had at Eurasian National University. It's been immensely grateful, and I'm really, really thankful for the opportunity. I would just conclude my presentation with look at the amount of ties and the figures, the USD GDP that we have with these countries. Kazakhstan earlier during it was 952. Now we're almost 2,000 plus, which is a huge USD trade investment that we have with your country. So with this, I would like to conclude, and I would open the floor for questions. Thank you very much for your time and patience.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. I mean, I can hear you.
Okay. So it was really amazing presentation, amazing lecture. The presentation was highly engaging and professionally delivered, so which made our session even more enjoyable. Personally, I would like to highlight some points, such interesting topics as epics. You mentioned Ramayana or Mahabharata, and also, as Lakshmi said to all our participants, the Kushana dynasty, Mughal dynasty empires. It's not the period of background of India, but also the same historical background for Central Asian countries. So it was really interesting topics. Thank you very much. So let's begin our Q&A session. And I see the hand. Please feel free to join our discussion, participants.
Yes, Afra. Afra Noor first.
First of all, hello and thank you for presentation. My name is Afra. I am doing a master's degree in regional studies. Actually, a topic of interest to me. I have a question. How do you assess today's relation between India and Central Asia?
How do you?
Uh, how do you assess today's relation between India and Central Asia?
Okay, today's relations. I would say that it's definitely on a very good positive note. I would definitely not say that we are hell bent with certain problems. We of course do not have a direct connecting link. As I said, Chabar port, and of now China's backed the deal, $850+ million. So India's again having a lot of problem. India just has one connecting flight that is from Delhi to Almaty, Almaty to Astana, which becomes a little difficult for us. But when I came here for the first time, I saw a lot of energy relations with you. I saw a lot of pharmaceutical relations with you, and that's something which is very, very happy to see that, because we share a lot of historical ties. So rebuilding that relationship is something that I'm really happy to see for.
Thank you for information.
We'll wait for some other questions. But I think your presentation was very interesting, very detailed, very clear. So I believe our students do not have any questions. But if they have, guys, you're free to join our discussion, because Lakshmi, I met Lakshmi personally last year, and she is a great researcher, great scientist. She got a lot of experience from different countries, and I think know Kazakhstan even better than than me. So
I
Innovated us because she reads a lot. She reads all the time, all the day. She never stops reading. Aldiar rose a hand before he will post his question. Let me tell you, Lakshmi, that your uncle Irfan, you remember Irfan Shahzad, Ramakrishna Pradhan. They called me one after another while you were lecturing. So both of them sent you their regards, and they were saying, "Good luck, Lakshmi. Good luck, Lakshmi." They were so happy that you delivered the lecture. And let me tell you my opinion on your lecture is that you did what no of the professors whose books you're reading ever done. You gave the whole outline of Indian history. It is amazing.
Correct, but if you always have any doubts, you want me to, give a little bit more information, please do get back to me at any point of time.
Well, thank you so much. Aldiar would like to post a question. Aldiar, the floor is yours.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can.
Hello, my name is Audyar. I am from Kazakhstan. I'm the student of first of bachelor degree of the regional studies. First off, I want to tell very big thanks for Lakshmi, Miss Lakshmi, for doing this lecture and doing this presentation for us, for our little groups. So very appreciate this.
Thank you so much.
And my question is about Mahabharata and Ramayana. Just one question about it. What is the significance of these epics for Indian culture and society? Like we have epics of Gilgamesh or epics of sorry, I forgot. There was epics that are really shows us the ancient times, how maybe how people lives in the ancient times and how the epics are no significance of their country no yeah country significance of for Indian culture.
Okay, if I have to tell you about only Ramayana and Mahabharata, let me just tell you 3 points. The relevance of Ramayana Mahabharata in today's times. First one would be ethics and morality. The idea of good will win over evil. That is something that Ramayana and Mahabharata is given. Whether you see Krishna's philosophy to Rama's philosophy, they talk about the bad needs to be end, there needs to be a curb. Like what Russia does in Ukraine, somewhere there'll be an end for it. That's what he. That's what mainly the Ramayana and Mahabharata teaches us. The second thing would be in terms of the military engagement that they had. You remember the war I was talking about, Ram versus Ravana. When you see the entire war that happened right between India as well as Sri Lanka, the entire episode of the armaments that were being dealt with is something that has given a lot of importance. And the third thing is would be foreign relations. India maintaining foreign relations, any one of these countries, whether it is Sri Lanka or whether it is Pakistan, we can see the importance which is being dwelt into the epics of Ramayana and Mahabharata. So I hope I answer your question.
Thanks, a lot of thanks, which is Miss Lakshmi.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. To conclude today's session on Indian history, I would like to once more thank our dear Lakshmi Karlekar so for sharing her expertise on the question of history from the ancient history till modern history. So this period is very important for our students to study. Also, we're looking forward to our future collaboration with Lakshmi and with participants today. So our future discussions maybe, because we all know that these topics are really significant to study for young researchers, for just scholars and for young scholars, I mean, and for this plus of people who are interested in regional studies in international relations. So thank you, Lakshmi, for participating. Thank you, you guys, to all of you participants who are for joining us today. And we will end our session here.
Thank you, Amina. Thank you all. Thank you, Professor Gupta.
So you may leave if you have some other business to do, or
And thanks,
Thank you.
Amina, for doing all of this.
it's my pleasure.
Organizing.
My
Thanks,
pleasure. I love my job.
Okay, bye, guys.
Goodbye.
Bye bye all.
Goodbye.
Have a nice weekend.
Bye, Daria.